The history of humanity cannot be understood without the history of its inventions. Ever since the first human being sharpened a stone to cut meat, the world began to transform. Each new discovery, each materialized idea, pushed our species one step beyond its natural limits. What began as a struggle for survival became, over time, a quest to understand, master, and shape reality. This first chapter is a journey through the oldest and most fundamental inventions, those that not only made life easier, but redefined what it meant to be human. Because invention is not born only from necessity. It is also born from curiosity, from observation, and from the uncontainable desire to improve. And it all began with fire. Fire, the first great power. Humans did not invent fire, but they did learn to master it. This discovery, which probably occurred more than 1,000,000 years ago, was the first to transform our relationship with the world. Fire warmed, illuminated, protected, and cooked. But above all, it brought people together. Around a campfire was born the first form of community. Stories, strategies, and emotions were shared. Early humans obtained it from natural phenomena, like lightning or spontaneous fires. But over time, they learned to generate it, by rubbing stones, striking flint against iron, controlling its spread. Fire was the first invention that gave us power over nature. And with it, we began to modify not only our environment, but also our bodies and brains. Cooked food allowed for better digestion, which freed up energy for brain growth. With fire and stone came the first tool. The stone tool, the extension of the body. Stone tools, sharp, rudimentary but effective, were used at least 2 million years ago by species like Homo habilis. Those first instruments allowed for more precise hunting, skinning animals, cutting wood, crushing roots. Stone became the extension of the human hand. But more than that, it became the extension of the mind. With each generation, tools were perfected. From basic striking came fine carving. Axes, scrapers, awls emerged, each with a specific purpose. And thus began the first technological revolution, one that would last thousands of years and taught our ancestors a crucial lesson, that ideas can become objects. The wheel, the beginning of limitless movement. We now jump forward in time to about 5,500 years ago, when one of the most influential inventions of all emerged. The wheel. It first appeared in Mesopotamia, not as transportation, but as part of a potter's wheel. Only later was it applied to carts, wagons, and machinery. The wheel allowed heavy loads to be transported with less effort, which revolutionized agriculture, commerce, and warfare. It enabled the expansion of empires, the creation of trade routes, and, over time, the birth of the first interconnected civilizations. Its perfect form, its symmetry, its effectiveness, have remained almost unchanged to this day. From ancient Babylonian chariots to modern trains and airplanes, the wheel keeps turning history. Writing, the beginning of collective memory. With sedentarization and the growth of the first cities, a new need arose, to record, count, remember. Thus writing was born, first as pictograms and cuneiform symbols on clay tablets, around 3200 BC in Sumeria. Writing transformed the human mind. It was no longer necessary to remember everything. Words began to live outside the body, in stone, on papyrus, on wood. Contracts, calendars, hymns, laws emerged. History was born, because for the first time the past could be preserved accurately. This invention not only allowed for the creation of organized states and complex religions, but also the birth of science, philosophy, and literature. It was the seed of all future education. The plow, the revolution of the earth. In parallel, humanity learned to master the soil beneath its feet. The plow, in its earliest forms, emerged around 3000 BC in Mesopotamia and Egypt. It was a simple tool, made of wood, pulled by oxen, but its impact was monumental. The plow allowed for the loosening and oxygenation of soil, making the land more fertile for cultivation. With it, food production multiplied, populations grew, and with the surplus of food, some people no longer had to dedicate themselves to harvesting. Thus was born the division of labor, commerce, cities. Each furrow opened by an ancient plow also drew the future of civilizations. Glass, seeing the invisible. Probably invented in Mesopotamia or Egypt more than 4,000 years ago, glass was first a decorative luxury. But over time, it became a tool of knowledge. When molded and polished, it allowed for clearer vision, concentrated light, protection, storage. Centuries later, with the invention of magnifying lenses in the Middle Ages, glass would open the doors to two revolutions: microscopy and astronomy. But even in its simplest form, glass transformed architecture, medicine, and alchemy. From a bottle to a dome, glass is the transparency of civilization. The compass, finding the north of the world. For centuries, humans depended on the sun, stars, and mountains to orient themselves. But with the invention of the compass, everything changed. It originated in China around the 2nd century BC, using magnetite, a naturally magnetized mineral. Later, the Chinese perfected the design, and its use spread through the Islamic world and then to Europe. The compass allowed navigation on the open sea, without the need for visual reference points. Thanks to it, oceans stopped being barriers and became routes. It facilitated the age of discovery, intercontinental commerce, cultural exchanges, and also colonization. It is a symbol of human power to orient oneself even in the unknown. The mechanical clock, conquering time. Time, that invisible river that flows ceaselessly, was for centuries measured with sun, water, or sand. But in medieval Europe, the mechanical clock emerged, a machine of gears and pendulums that allowed the day to be divided into exact fractions. We no longer depended on shadows or intuition. Now, time had a visible, predictable, and universal structure. The clock allowed for urban organization, production planning, transportation, appointments, wars. It taught us to live within a rhythm imposed by gears, not by the sky. Time stopped being only natural and became social. The telescope, eyes toward the infinite. We close this first chapter with an invention that changed our vision of the universe forever. The telescope. Although its origins are found in the Netherlands in the early 17th century, it was Galileo Galilei who perfected it and pointed it at the sky. What he saw left him speechless. Moons orbiting Jupiter, craters on the moon, spots on the sun. The sky was not perfect, nor fixed, nor immutable. Earth was not the center of the universe. The telescope shattered the medieval worldview and opened the door to modern science. With it, human beings stopped looking only at their surroundings and began to look beyond. These inventions, from fire to the telescope, are not just ancient objects. They are milestones in the development of our species. Each one represented a leap not only technological, but also mental, cultural, and spiritual. Because to invent is to rewrite the limits of the possible. If the first chapter showed us how humanity learned to transform its physical environment with tools, fire, and wheels, this second part of the journey reveals something even more fascinating. The transformation of knowledge, information, and collective consciousness. Because the most powerful inventions are not always those that can be touched, but those that change the way we think, learn, and connect. It all began with one of the most transcendental inventions of all time. The printing press. The printing press. The birth of the age of knowledge. In the 15th century, Johannes Gutenberg revolutionized the world with an invention that seemed simple, but whose impact was as profound as it was irreversible. The movable type printing press. For the first time, books, until then manuscripts reserved for the religious elite, could be mass-produced, quickly and at low cost. The first great print was the Gutenberg Bible, but what followed was even more transformative. Scientific treatises, technical manuals, political pamphlets, novels, letters, maps, knowledge no longer belonged only to the powerful. With the printing press was born the information age, public education, the Protestant Reformation, modern science. And above all, a literate humanity was born, capable of reading, thinking critically, and transmitting ideas beyond death. Gunpowder. The power of control and conflict. While ideas spread with ink, another invention made its way with fire. Gunpowder. Although its origins date back to 9th century China, it was in Europe where it became a decisive tool of military power. Gunpowder changed the art of war. It brought down castles, unseated cavalry, redefined empires. With it came cannons, muskets, modern wars. But also revolutions, because power was no longer exclusive to kings or nobles. An armed population could confront its oppressors. It is an invention with two faces, liberation and destruction, defense, and conquest. The steam engine, the motor of the modern world. In the 18th century, with the arrival of the Industrial Revolution, another invention ignited the heart of cities. The steam engine. Powered by coal, it converted heat into movement and thereby automated production, revolutionized transportation, and accelerated commerce. Trains, ships, factories, everything was transformed. Humanity entered the era of mass production, urbanization, and globalization. But new inequalities, pollution, and extreme working conditions also emerged. Every invention has its price, and modernity began to show it. Electricity, taming invisible energy. In the 19th century, names like Faraday, Tesla, and Edison began to play with a force that no one could see, but that was everywhere. Electricity. From the first incandescent lamps to urban electrical grids, humanity managed to extend the day, illuminate streets, power motors, drive communications. Without electricity, computers, telephones, satellites, or the internet would not exist. It was the definitive threshold between the mechanical age and the digital age. The telephone, radio, and television. The world listens and watches. With electricity came modern means of communication. The telegraph allowed messages to be sent through cables. The telephone, invented by Alexander Graham Bell, connected voices across miles. Then came radio, which brought music and ideas to homes around the world, and later television, which put moving images and narratives in front of millions of people at the same time. These inventions created a shared global culture, a space where ideas, sounds, and faces crossed borders. Humanity, for the first time, felt connected. The computer and the internet, the birth of the digital world. The 20th century brought the next great leap: computing. The first computers occupied entire rooms and solved complex equations. But over time, they became personal, portable, omnipresent. And then the internet appeared. What began as a military network became the largest library, market, plaza, and communication network ever created. The internet transformed access to information, the way we learn, work, love, and live. Today, billions of people carry in their pockets more computational power than was used to reach the moon. Artificial intelligence. The next chapter. And now, we enter a new era, that of artificial intelligence. Machines that learn, predict, generate texts, images, music. Systems that diagnose diseases, translate languages, write code, and perhaps soon, make decisions for us. The question is no longer what we will invent. The question is, are we prepared for what we have already invented? Invention as a reflection of the human soul. Each invention has been a window into our aspirations, to survive, understand, master, connect, transcend. But it has also been a mirror of our fears and excesses. From a spark of fire to a quantum chip, the history of inventions is the story of ourselves. What comes next does not depend only on technology. It depends on our ethics, our compassion, and our collective vision of the future. Because inventing is not just making new things. It is deciding what kind of world we want to build. If you like the video, we invite you to like the video and subscribe to see more videos like this. Comment on what you want the next documentary to be about.